Hello, welcome to Microfiche Microphone. I'm Micah, and on this channel, we look at microfiche from the past, old newspaper articles in the public domain, and we read them with our modern eyes and our modern perspective and see what we can learn from them. So, on this microfiche time capsule, I have decided to start a series because in the magazine, The Kansas Farmer, I have discovered a section of the newspaper, magazine, whatever it is, periodical, that is called Interesting War Items. Interesting war items I thought were very interesting, and since there are so many of them, I thought it might be fun to go through them one at a time. So on today's microfiche time capsule, we are looking at Kansas Farmer from the 10th of August, 1918, looking at interesting war items. So let's take a look. I'm excited. I'm not sure what's in here. I actually have not looked at these, but I do have it written down that there are several different versions of interesting war items. All right, so let's start at the top. So this is a series talking about World War I, in case you hadn't put it together, in which time the United States, which is where this newspaper originates from, was fighting against Germany and Austria, as well as Turkey, I think, was on the other side of World War I. So they mostly talk about Germany, because Germany was the country who basically started it all. Good job, Germany. They had to pay for it, so you can't be too mad at them today. They've paid their debt. But it's interesting to see that perspective of the Americans then looking at them from a very rural perspective, yeah? Rural America in the middle of the country who doesn't really have any sort of direct contact with them. So let's take a look. Germany wants to know what the United States is fighting for. She thinks the sinking of neutral ships without warning isn't enough to bring us in. All right, let's tell her. We're going to fight for outraged women. We're going to fight for crucified nuns. Crucified nuns. Was that a thing in World War I? I was not aware of that. We're going to fight for little children with hands and arms missing. Okay, that's justified. We're going to fight for namelessly mutilated soldiers. We're going to fight for innocent thousands strewn upon the bottom of the sea. We're going to fight for Belgium, outraged and desecrated as no nation in the previous history of the world has ever been. Yeah, that's probably true. I'm not going to lie. Sorry, Belgium. We're going to fight for France, that magnificent nation of heroes, bled white, defending civilization against the power of the beast. We're going to fight for England, which chose the path of honor, black-tinted with despair, when the little nation she had sworn to defend was set upon by a wild beast. We're going to fight for Italy, which took up the cause of right against the power of wrong, terrible though she knew the cost must be. We're going to fight in defense of those principles of human liberty which were laid down 19 centuries ago by that first great teacher and preacher of human rights, the man of Galilee. No offense, but Jesus was not the first person who taught about human liberty, and I don't think that was his main topic. His main topic was love your neighbor, if I am not mistaken, and it was not personal liberty, human liberty. Sorry, but that one is inaccurate. Every iota of the philosophy and creed and of hate and blood and violence and bestiality and diabolic cruelty and the human enslavement that mark every footstep of the Kaiser and his cohorts of hell, are in direct and damnable opposition to every thought, word, and deed of the man of Galilee. Well, I feel like war in general is kind of against the teachings of Jesus Christ. So, love your neighbor, kill each other, I mean, they don't really go together. This is therefore no fight of democracy against autocracy. It is no battle of nation against nation. It is no contest of man against man. It is a titanic struggle between right and wrong, between the philosophy of Jesus Christ and the powers of evil through the earthly defenders of each. What's interesting is that, Germany is also Christian. It's not like they're fighting a country that has a strongly different religion, so I'm not sure why they threw religion into it. I think that the people in Germany would have said the same thing. Seriously. And we're going to fight, 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 side by side with our fellows in the cause of humanity, until there is no vestige left on all this great earth of the powers that, defying God and man, precipitated this cataclysm of blood and tears. There is only one sentiment in this whole broad land today, and the man who does not recognize it must indeed be deaf, dumb, and blind. And that sentiment is a dogged determination deep down in the very bowels of every man that we are going to fight until we have justified Italy, saved England, swept immortal France free of the Hun, liberated Belgium, avenged so far as it is within human power the countless crimes of Germany against civilization, broken the Hindenburg line, and swept the army of the beast as chaff before the wind, humbled the empire of hell, and, please God, rid the earth of the Kaiser and all his fell breed. If anyone asks you, tell them that it is what we are going to fight for. J.C. Dion of the Gulf Coast Lumbermen. Yeah, okay. I don't know what else we're going to say about that, but it was very motivating. Reminds me a lot of a speech just before like a big tournament, like a sports tournament. It's the pep talk. That's my pep talk speech. So some of what they said was true, of course, but some of it was just related to having been in a war. So, in general, like all war is like that. So, moving on. Advice. I want to know how to succeed in the other world, said the young man to the older one. In the world. Okay, sorry, in the other world. Right, because there's another world. Okay, sorry. Try again. Advice. I want to know how to succeed in the world, said the young man to the older one. Young man, said the gray-haired individual, right now you've no business worrying about your own success. All you've got to do is to get a job in the Army or Navy and help to win the war. After that, I'll be glad to give you a tip on how to become rich or famous. Norton Career. Yeah, there's a time and a place for everything, right? At the time, soldiers were needed so badly that they just needed everyone to volunteer who could. Books and magazines needed. Here is a service which everyone can render. A very recent message from General Pershing says, we must keep the American soldiers clean. And to assist in this great work, he wants 50 tons of books each month from overseas. The desire of the Library Association, says Miss Maggie Neff, state chairman, is to have every idle book now in the homes of America doing service, helping entertain and instruct our soldiers wherever they may be. 1 million books was the first call. 2.5 million were donated, and Kansas gave 1/26 of that number. Get busy and see that your community donates more books and mail out of your current magazines as soon as they are read. A 1-cent stamp and your postmaster will do the balance. Any detailed information desired can be obtained from Mrs. Adrian Green of Topeka, Secretary of the Kansas Traveling Library, and member of the National War Liberty Association. Well, that's sweet. They're like, hey, give us books. We want to, I like how they put it, though. We want to keep our soldiers clean, quote unquote. So if they're reading books, then they're not out looking for prostitutes? Is that the idea? I don't know. I didn't serve in World War I, so couldn't really say. 4 Huns for each American. Private Edward Byrd of Coffee County, a member of the 2nd U.S. Engineers, writes to his sister from a base hospital in France, where he is recovering from a wounded knee. A letter reproduced in the Burlington Republic, from which we quote the following paragraph. Believe me, if you could only see what I have seen, you people in America would surely be more patriotic than ever before. The Germans came over after our boys a great many times while I was there, but there were very, very few of them ever went back. For every American killed, there were at least 4 or sometimes more Germans that pay the price. Anyway, they're a yellow bunch. Jeez. Of the hospital, he says, this is such a beautiful place in which to be, one which takes the sad things out of a man's life and just makes one think of those things which are beautiful and noble and good. Huns, really? Okay, if you're not aware, the Huns were an actual group of people. So calling anybody else Huns is kind of cultural appropriation, Like, they might as well call them Japanese or Indian or Australian. You know what I mean? Like, seriously? Seriously. So, the Huns are generally thought of like northern China and like Mongolia kind of an area. That's the area they were from. And they came and invaded Europe with almost no resistance. And because they were organized and nobody else was, basically. And just rolled over country after country, like nobody's business. And I guess they're using it in a sense of our like abstract enemy, and they're calling them Hun. But I don't prefer them talking about people from Germany as if they were Huns. Like, that's a completely different race. I mean, Asian, European. You know what I mean? Like, it's really strange to even compare them. But they're not comparing them, they're just calling them that. So I think that that's kind of a weird thing to do. It's rather racist, not gonna lie. And I understand there is a certain amount of propaganda needed during a war, but this is going a little far. Jeez. And saying that for every American killed, 4 German people are killed. Really? Because that's not what I read. Anyway, moving on. Enthusiastic about Red Cross. The soldiers' appreciation of the work of the Red Cross is doing, even on this side of the water, is shown by the following extract from a letter written by Albert Smith of Beloit to his cousin living at that place, as reported in his home paper. Say, talk about the Red Cross. Believe me, it is the greatest work going. I will try and tell you a few things that it does for us soldiers. At Atlanta, Georgia, the Red Cross workers met our train and gave us grape juice, postcards, and cigarettes. In Rome, Georgia, they gave us pop and smokes. In Topeka, we were showered with apples and flowers. At Kansas City, we had all the pop we could drink, and besides they gave us postcards and papers to read. At Moberly, Missouri, they showered us with cookies and other things, and let me tell you, these things taste mighty good to a hungry man who is hundreds of miles from home and his people. So, that's a sweet story. I just want to clarify one thing. There is a regional word here used, and that's pop. If you're not aware of the word pop, in this context, it means like soda. It's a carbonated, sugary drink of some kind. I just wanted to clarify that because that can be regional. I've lived in several places in my life, and I happen to know that particular one. One of the places they use that word, but not everywhere, so just in case you were not aware of that. Baseball new bond. American baseball is supplying a new bond of fellowship between men of the Italian Army and American Red Cross workers along the Italian front. It made an instant hit with the Italians. An ambulance man wrote recently, most of them as yet catch the ball with their stomachs, but they are making rapid progress. Are you serious? They borrow our ball whenever it is not in use. Catch the ball with their stomachs. Oh my gosh. I've never heard that before, ever. So Italians like baseball. At least they did during World War I. I don't know if that's still the case. But that's really funny. Like, just that thought of, like, that image of Italian people throwing a ball around and catching it with their stomachs because they don't know how to use the gloves. To be fair, I've used a couple, and they're not that easy if you've never done it before. They look easy when you're watching a baseball game, and then you try it, and you're like, actually, this takes practice, doesn't it? Yes, it does. But that's really funny, catching it with their stomach. Soldiers receive razors. Razors are being issued to the men of the American Expeditionary Forces. One is supplied to each man, with replacements in case of loss through no fault of the man's. In addition to the razors, there are standard safety type. Each man is issued a toothbrush, comb, hairbrush, soap, and towels. Great. I mean, that's kind of a minimum like that I would have expected, but hey, whatever. Believes in preparedness. The editor of the Rooks County Records issued the following warning. Our boys who stay in France and Italy for some time will of course adopt many of the social customs of these lands. Though they may at first shy at them, be prepared to have them kiss you on both cheeks as well as pump your arm when he comes home. I'm not sure what that has to do with preparedness. Oh, I guess they're trying to prepare the people. Okay, I get it. So they're trying to prepare the parents who sent out their young boys to go into the army, teenagers and late teens and early 20s. And if they come back, they may have picked up some of the culture from where they're going. So if they go to France or Italy, then they might kiss you on two cheeks. I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that. Just for context, I've lived in France and then went back to the United States. And I didn't do that. So I don't know. I don't know if that's like something that I don't think anybody would naturally do that. Who knows? Maybe some will, but I don't think it's a common thing. What the soldiers say. The Red Cross is surely the soldier's best friend. We were given hot coffee and sandwiches by the Red Cross. All the good you hear of the Red Cross is true. It gives a fellow a wonderful feeling of home. The Red Cross meets us at every point and even accompanies us to the trenches. Well, they certainly are speaking well of the Red Cross. I actually spoke to my brother recently about, it wasn't that recent, it was a while back, about the Red Cross, and he literally thought it was an American organization. So just to clear up any confusion, the Red Cross is Swiss. I'm not kidding. There are different branches of the Red Cross in every other country, but if you look at the Red Cross as a red cross on a white background, it is the Swiss flag with colors opposite of the regular Swiss flag. So it's interesting that because it feels like kind of an American propaganda thing where they're like a Red Cross is the best, and because it's American, it has that feel about it, even though it's not. The Red Cross itself is Swiss. However, their branches of the Red Cross, the American Red Cross, might be what they were talking about, but the Red Cross itself is not an American organization. But there's just an American branch of it. There's also other branches in every other country I've been to. So I think most countries have their own branch of the Red Cross. The German Red Cross and the French Red Cross. And, I wonder if it's called the Swiss Red Cross if you go to Switzerland. I've never been to Switzerland, so anybody who has been to Switzerland, let me know. Or is it just called the Red Cross since it's already Swiss? Anyways, so that was a good combination of encouraging ideas on what you can do as a regular person and ridiculous amounts of war propaganda. Great. And what I really loved the most is like the random stories, like the baseball story. Like that was hilarious. That was probably my favorite one this time. But I'm hoping that reading these will give us more insight into World War I and like kind of the everyday kind of work that people did. I just thought it might be fun. Don't take the propaganda too seriously. It was kind of needed at the time. And, it's easy to see it as propaganda when you're looking at it from, 100 years later. But at the time, it seemed pretty normal to them. So I'm sure we have our own propaganda of different kinds. But it's not something we recognize as propaganda today. And we won't for another 15, 20 years once we've changed our mind about things. And realized, oh wow, that was quite a bit of peer pressure to think that way, wasn't it? Yeah, probably was. So try not to take it too seriously. Don't take it at face value. Just look at it as a piece of history. We're not trying to spread these ideas today. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. I thought it was fun. And please join us for our next Microfiche time capsule. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I hope to see you in the next video.